Coffee is here.
That's right. The important thing.
I saw it from computer and I happened to be online and I was like, oh, I didn't know how to do that.
It's on the consent. Dr. Ray, it's on it, or is that? Yeah. Whichever one you want. All right, thanks. Hi. That's Dave. Hi. Thank you. Thanks, good to see you. Well, thanks. Good, how about you? Anything going on? Good, how are you? We were can't hear reasons. Yeah. We actually. I'll run shooting line. I think that's remarkable. Oh, great. How y'all? Doing well, how are you? Good to see you. Hi, thank you. Yeah. It's been a lot. I just, was very opportunistic. Yeah, I'm glad we got. How you doing? Yeah, you guys interact. It is what they need each other. They finally coordinated. Yeah. Yeah. Chairman? Okay, very safe. I don't. We got time. No, so I appreciate you taking yeah, okay. Oh, that's quite all right. Like you were, yeah, I think I don't work people go. Back to the 5 minutes. On that item, you know, we're not going to get it. So you're all. Yeah. Well, good morning, everyone. So we have, so again, welcome everybody. We'll start with tradition and consider the minutes. Any comments or motions that might apply to the minutes?
There's no discussion. I would move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Sir?
I would second the distinguished gentleman from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it starts early today. So is there, are there any comments or corrections? I hear none, all in favor, aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, all right, so now we're sufficiently warmed up, loosened up, ready to roll. So John, you're going to talk to us about community college merger approval requirement. Yes. I'm surprised we don't call that the CBAR or something. But go ahead.
So recently, board president was notified and that 2 community colleges were at least potentially looking at exploring whether or not they might want to merge, and there's a
I hope
statutory
you got
process.
enough call, I hope you got enough qualifications.
There's a-
Possibly considering the might, potential.
There's a statutory process for that, already in place, so they don't have to get special legislative approval to do that. Community colleges and campuses have that ability, and there's a process laid out. So starting on page 3 of your materials is a summary of that process. And the respective community college boards can vote to explore that. If they agree to move forward with that, the statute requires that they enter into a written agreement. That written agreement has some elements that must be included. One of those elements that must be included is that the agreement has no force or effect unless approved by the board of regents. So if they were to enter into an agreement, if two or more community colleges were to enter into an agreement, they have to have this written agreement between those two colleges. They would bring that to the board. If that were approved by the board, then there's a vote in the district, the combined district of those respective community colleges. If that vote is affirmative, then that vote gets certified by the local election official, and then it would come back to the board. The statute then provides that the board would issue an order establishing the new community college district. A long process. Just an informational matter only.
So, any questions about that?
John, how set would their details have to be when they bring it to us, related to curriculum, related to facilities? How much of that has to be?
Athletics would be one area.
How much of that do they have to have figured out before they come to us?
So the things that they have to, if you look at page 3, the things that they have to have worked out at that early point is the name of the community college district, what they propose it to be, date of the election, composition of the board of trustees, the new board, method of the election, of the voting plan, description of member districts if needed, and membership of the temporary board. So I think not much of those details have to be worked out at that early point. Once the election happens, obviously there's a lot of operational that will work out, sure, all those kind of things. And that goes on to provide some detail on pages 3 and 4, all those things that have to be decided, and how bond debt, or any debt is handled, what happens to equipment, all those kind of things are somewhat provided for in statute and somewhat subject to agreement between the two organizations.
I guess maybe my perspective is wrong, so I want to hear it is, but I mean, I think the laws of nature are such that, I mean, you have two governing boards that are going to cause that merger to happen that are us, so two community college boards. They will have a higher need to have all those things worked out than we possibly can do approach. So I would think it would be pretty natural that there would be quite a bit that we can work out, because otherwise they're getting approval for something and then it's the things that haven't worked out, and they're not very close. And just sort of, I mean, I assume everybody knows, but I mean, at least the independence meeting was a public meeting, right? It suggested they wanted to explore the coffee bill. So that's the catalyst for this. But for now, we should just be waiting and be careful observers, and we don't have to really roll until it reaches, if it reaches another point, it may not, that we take action. Until then, we've got a responsibility for all of them, to coordinate all of the groups that might be involved. Is that all correct? What you said is correct?
When we've had affiliation, I would just say that, the details actually, structurally, you know, the word is structural. But then the details in terms of curriculum and so on takes years. I mean, like it doesn't just like immediately happen. So that, to Chair Isaac's point, that's gonna happen locally.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, all right, thanks for covering that with us. We now have some knowledge that we'll use as appropriate going forward in case something might possibly potentially come about in some way.
I didn't want to say that.
No, you don't. I didn't know I had to do that.
People sometimes jump to, oh, they've already done it, they're
No,
gonna do
no,
this.
no, that was not meant in a letter decision. I think they had to be very careful about. I mean, we kind of don't know that they're having any discussion. If there are any discussions, they're having a party. Okay, all right. So while you're on a roll, you're up for a conflict of interest.
Next item, Regent Moore, following her confirmation, has turned in, as we have all new regions do, disclosure, our Kansas Board of Regents disclosure form of any potential conflict pursuant board policy. And so she's turned that in. She didn't report any potential conflict on that form. So I just want to bring that to get us caught up. We'll turn around and do this again for everybody as we do annually here in a couple months. So I just wanted to get this caught up so that it wasn't lagging for a couple months while all meetings were. So this will be on the meeting agenda this afternoon. The staff recommendation on this is that for your consideration, Regent Woodward be directed that she just remain cognizant of her obligation under board policy to report any interest, membership, or affiliation, required disclosure as those may occur.
I'm glad you did that. Took the action before. It didn't, okay, all right, any questions from that? We don't have to take any action.
If you want to approve that recommendation for this afternoon, then I that's what I think what we've done.
Okay. All right, and then do it again, I guess. But well, almost have no votes. We know we're getting the answer. Whatever.
I move we recommend this, the board for that.
Okay. You're a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'm hearing none. All in favor, aye, please. Aye.
Aye.
All right, you vote, you vote. All right, so it's at least a tie vote going into this afternoon. Unless someone changes their mind. Okay, all right. Let me look and see what's next. Okay, the IT security standards for the university.
Is behind you.
I'll hand you guys the language, just so you have it. Couple, I didn't have six, I have it locked enough, I want to make sure John can. I do have the one.
Oh.
I'll give one to you. So you all know that you created a group called the Tabor IT Security Council, and we've met several times this year. In our November meeting, we met, and one of the actions that we took is we voted on adopting the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0 standards for all institutions in the state. And so today we're coming to you to ask that you approve that and move forward with adopting that system-wide for the region institutions. And just to give you a little background on NIST, NIST stands for the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and they provide guidelines that help institutions with cybersecurity. And really, there's a lot of focuses. It looks at identifying, protecting, detecting, responding, all the things that we need to do in such an incident. But there's three focuses that are probably the most key with those standards, and that is identifying, protecting, responding, and recovering from such an incident, and then tailoring our security practices based on our risks at our institutions. And right now, I think you all know that we're each going through an audit with Rupert Brown to identify what those risks are. That audit is based on those standards, so it will look very closely at these standards and how we each fit those standards right now. And then improving communication with our stakeholders to help them avoid any cybersecurity incidents. So those are the three really pointed areas with these standards. They will change over time, and we'll probably come back to you as in years come when 3.0 comes out, 4.0 comes out, to ask for you to adopt those standards as well. So today, that's what we're seeking, and I'll be happy to get any questions you all might have.
So, see, if one were to just suggest following foolishly following a different course, what else would we possibly consider?
There could be different standards that we could follow. These are really the most progressive that are out there, and they're the most widely accepted. Most audits are based on these standards, and they're ahead of where we are right now, a big step ahead of where we are right now.
It's my impression that most companies use that, these now.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right, is there a motion to approve, the NIC standards?
I would still move.
All right, thank you. Is there a second? Second. All right, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for all your work.
Any opposed? Thank you.
all.
So we look forward to 3.0. All right, and then, as you all know, we do security and, safety reports for each of the institutions on a rolling basis. Fortunately, today, we do that for Pittsburgh while we're at Pittsburgh. So, please.
Good morning. Let me talk with you guys this morning.
Seems like just the other day you gave us an update.
Yeah, it does, right? End of the year on it and stuff. 2024 was, kind of busy for me personally. Blake mentioned earlier, I'm currently city commissioner, at Pittsburgh. And last year, my fellow commissioners were kind enough to make me mayor for a year. So being mayor and chief of police at Pitt State was, challenging at times just from scheduling and things. But,
Did you have to provide your own security?
I did, yeah. I had my detail was not ever, the security detail was never on time, so.
Sounds like a tremendous consolidation of power there.
I find myself having to recuse myself occasionally and or abstaining from some things, but really not that much. You know, it's really it's a great opportunity to be able to serve the community, to do that in that capacity. A lot of people think, oh, you left the university as chief. No, that's my paying job. I have to have that. That's my volunteer work in the city. So, but so I'll start off by just kind of catching you guys up what all we did last year. One of the biggest things is we've all, I'm sure, moved personally from one house to another. Well, we had the opportunity to move our police house, from Shirk Annex to Horace Mann. The better part of summer and fall last year. We completed that move in October, to our temporary home on second floor of Horace Mann, for the eventual, demolition of Shirk and Shirk Annex. So, as you all know from having to move personally, we tend to accumulate a lot of stuff. So, the police department can really accumulate a lot of stuff. So we're working through challenges on that, things like barricades, traffic cones. Where are we storing that? Because the current, we're trying to find those things across campus. But beyond that, we physically moved. We got the operations dispatch center back up and running, obviously, before we ever completely flipped the switch and took over operations in Horace Mann. But Angela's team was great to work with. Obviously there's radios, there's NCIC computers, it's just, you don't really think about how difficult that is to move until a police center, a law enforcement center, until you do it. So that was great to have that over with, and we love the space we're in. We're not below ground anymore. We're not in the dungeon of Shirk Annex. We're now on the nice bright windows and see light and all kinds of things. So, and I'll get into this in a little bit, but you all probably have heard that we're partnering with KBI on their new facility. I'll talk more about that, about future plans. So, but yeah, that was pretty monumental to do that, as I had hoped to have it moved before semester started, fall semester. That didn't happen. So, it was a challenge every day to get things moved and just make that happen. So happy to be done, happy to be settled in. We finished up, I think last time we talked, I told you we really doubled our defibrillators, our AEDs across campus. We finished that operation up, as well as placing Narcan in every building on campus, so, or naloxone. Narcan's the main brand. So, but yeah, that worked real well. Happy to report that none of those have been used. So doesn't mean we don't need them. We're happy to have them. But yeah, I think that was an important public safety as well as campus safety initiative to get those things rolled out.
Oh, do they have a shelf life?
I'm sorry.
Does it shelf life?
The Narcan has a shelf life, and we'll check that. We have, the officers will do that, kind of check it on their nightly patrols through the buildings. They'll check it from time to time. It's 2 years, typically, so. But the training, all the training I've been to, giving expired Narcan is better than no Narcan. We're not obviously gonna make it a practice to keep expired, but, they found that even if it's the past expiration date thing used and then successful in bringing people back, so.
I'm sure you'll do it all appropriately. It just occurred to me when you said that
Yeah,
you're
and it does.
not used, that was.
And probably a more expensive, venture or region would be the batteries and the, adhesive, pads for the AEDs. That's a pretty monumental task as well, to keep those up to date. We've got those all inventory and, a plan in place to keep those rotated.
I'm a little more familiar with that. Yes, that is.
So, the other thing that we, looking at the past year, continue to face challenging, times with recruiting and retention of officers. We enjoyed a full staffing for about 2 to 3 months, I think from maybe October to November, December. And we lost one, to a local sheriff's office that in Cherokee County, that got asked to be the head of detectives down there. He was retired from Olathe PD, came down here, loved working at his alma mater, was a great PR officer, just had a better opportunity, to pursue that, in another county. So, and the other one just didn't work out through the probationary employment time, just wasn't gonna be a good fit. So, we are still 2 officers down now and facing a 3rd one this summer because of retirement. And I'll tell you, the hiring pool is not good. I mean, it's almost non-existent. If you get one, no disrespect to the people applying that you'll get. I've seen resumes for sandwich artists, that want to go into law enforcement. That's actually a thing. That's a sandwich artist, working at a local restaurant. Delivery expert. Those are some of the applications we've had, and a lot of those are just people checking a box, fulfilling, saying I have to apply for a job for whatever reason. So we have to weed through those, trying to stay competitive, with prices, with salaries and benefits. We have a huge advantage if you're at the age of having dependent children, or even trying to pursue your own, furthering your education. One suggestion I made to President Schiff was if we could look at, and I don't know what your opinions on this are, but I think we could maybe even bolster the dependent tuition waiver. If we could do that from an employee standpoint, if the employee is willing to still commit to, if we could make it more than 3 hours. Currently, it's 3 hours is all that they can take. And I get that you want them to be a full-time employee, not a full-time student. But I think I think there's a lot of people that would come here want to work on their bachelor's, finish their bachelor's and or their master's, as they get later in their career. But, we're not alone. I've told you this before. Every agency head that I talk to is facing the same situation.
What did President Schiff say about the?
He was in favor of that. And I think it's one of those things we have to probably come up with, some guidelines policy on it to make sure that it doesn't, get abused by somebody. But to me, if you want to make that commitment to take more than 3 hours, I mean, what are we really at as an institution to oblige that? And it's another recruiting tool.
Well, we should be careful staying in process, so I don't want to say too much, but the board's been pretty favorably inclined to approving those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Because to your point, it's what we do. It comes as an outsized benefit to the
It is.
employee in relation to what we can offer. We have to be able to do it pretty well.
And I think you appeal to a whole other demographic of not just somebody that's got high school age kids or junior high age kids that are thinking, oh, well, I could go to the state and work and get my kids through, tuition, get tuition waivers. So they can also now look, you can look at people that are saying, well, I can go back to school and further my
But
education.
don't take that as approval.
No, I
No, they
of
like to say what Carl meant to say.
course, but yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm glad you guys are talking about that stuff. So one of the next big things is really the exciting thing for, and I don't know how long you want me to, how long I have.
This is important, so we should cover what you should cover.
Okay, so the KBI building, as many of you probably heard from President Schiff and others, it's a unique opportunity for us to be able to partner with them as university police officers and the University Police Department. We're gonna have our dispatch center housed in, much like Washburn. Only I don't believe Washburn's, they have a security desk rather than full-time operations there. I think that's correct. We're gonna have our whole operation there, so we'll basically be, the alarm system, the alarm company for the, the live and person alarm system for the KBI building there and the crime lab. And then obviously academics are working on trying to partner with them as well, so. But right now, we're in the planning stages, went to Kansas City a couple weeks ago, met with the architecture firm, working through what we need in our space. I have another meeting this Friday to talk about specifics in our dispatch center. And again, they want to know where are we at currently, where are we at for future. It's so difficult to look at future needs because I don't know, I don't have my crystal ball just isn't working. You want to be able to factor in, hey, maybe we'll have one more officer, staffed up or two or three. I don't know how many we'll add in the future. And maybe we won't add any. Maybe we're, one of the other things I wanted to talk about was just that future needs would be ways to use force multipliers, whether that be AI involved in video, campus video, where you've got more of a proactive approach where, it detects a figure, much like my Ring doorbell camera, you can set it to just detect people, or pets, it's just a matter of adjusting the sensitivity. The ability to do that on campus is maybe you really have the ability to detect something here, whether it be an individual, a vehicle, they even have the ability to detect firearms. Of course, it's early in the technology, so there's always glitches with that. But I think that's the future. You're going to have a camera with this person or object, and you're going to follow that person or object until the next camera, and then it passes it off to the next one. And so I think that type of thing will really increase not only the quality of our protection, of our safety, being able to provide safety to our campus community. I also think it's a force multiplier because I'm not sure, as a longtime law enforcement officer, I'm not sure I see a light at the end of the tunnel on this hiring situation. I just don't see people going into law enforcement. And I think people going into campus law enforcement is an even smaller number because it's nothing against it. It's just a very unique part of the profession. It's not for brand new recruits. I'm okay if I was a training ground. I'd be happy to be a training ground, especially in a higher ed, institution. Makes perfect sense. Hire a criminal justice student, put them through the academy, give them a year, 18 months of training locally, and then they're a perfectly hireable candidate for another agency. And I think that's a reality that myself and other university chiefs would have to agree that that's just it's just a necessary evil. It's something I think we need to look at, embrace, and figure out how we get those folks. Because we don't appeal. We're not, as I tell potential candidates, if you're an adrenaline junkie and you're here for that, you're gonna be disappointed. You're gonna be bored, you're gonna be unhappy, and you're not gonna be with us, 6 months from now. And that really is, it's exhausting, from a police executive's standpoint, as far as the constant turnover. And just the expensive training, the uniforms, because guess what? We never hire the same size person from time to time. The person that left is never the same size as the person who just hired. And that's anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 per officer, when you look at just uniforms and ballistic vests and, equipment on their belts, things like that. So it's not it's not a negligible item. It's substantial, especially if you're hiring 2, 3, 4 a year. But so that was kind of those, I kind of had current and future rolled into that one with
I'm
KPI.
surprised that someone that's an experienced law enforcement officer wouldn't find it attractive to transition some point in their career to it.
I always like to say, it's not about money, but it is about money. If you take a senior law enforcement officer, you almost have to wait and get someone like myself that retired and say, okay, I'm willing to work for less because I'm going to be, I don't want to, don't take this, I'm going to be doing less. Because frankly, that's, I mean, let's face it, we are campus law enforcement. We have the luxury of not having the call load that our off-campus partners do. So that part is appealing, especially if you still want to be in the job, but you're old. But again, I've said this before, we don't want to hire just old retired guys and gals that, you know, we have to have that diversity as far as the youth, you know, to be able to really connect with your audience, with your student body, as well as the experience. But really, I think it is about money when you look at that, because you're looking at somebody who's sustained all the cost of living raises over the years, from a career wherever they were at, versus coming out and starting at $21 an hour. And most people just can't swallow that change, because you may be having, depending if they're coming from a larger metropolitan, they may be making $45 an hour, maybe more if they were supervisors. And then coming down and making half of that. If they're not retired, nobody's gonna do that, you know, without that luxury of having, you know, double dipping and having a retirement check.
Understood.
So, great point, and that is the challenge, is,
But I'm sure you know railroads by statute have police forces as well, and so that usually a pretty
right,
effective way. So for instance, the chief of police used to be the chief of Arlington, Texas.
Yep, yep. And there's still some of that, but I do think the challenge is, and again, in years past, I don't want to continue to belabor the point, but, you know, we wanted to get our starting pay up, you know, to a competitive level. And I think a lot of agencies have done that, but we've done a really bad job of getting your senior people up. So there's huge compression. I mean, I literally have a couple of people that are working that are making maybe $1 an hour, maybe $1.50 an hour more, and they've been here 15, 20 years on what brand new recruit is. Good job for us getting the brand new recruit up, bad job for us getting the senior person up. So,
I'm with you very confident in the situation, so thank you.
and again, I really think with block 22, I think we need to look at, one of the things I see in the future, we may be looking at putting a substation, if you will, down there, because with Gorilla Rising in block 22, there will be, I don't know if that looks like 24 hours, but again, another hiring challenge, trying to get somebody to be just out there, because it's really just far enough removed from main campus. We don't want to take an officer off main campus and go down there. We also have jurisdiction issues we can work with on the city, where we can get expanded jurisdiction down there. Currently, we don't have that. And at the time, didn't really want it. We kind of want to see where that went. So currently, anything that happens down there in the middle of town is Pittsburgh Police's responsibility. So, which creates challenges for me and my department for clearing notifications and things, because as you know, downtown urban area, even in Pittsburgh, Kansas, has a lot more activity than we do in our main campus. So criminal activity. So that's really all I have. I mean, I think drones have a place in the University of Law Enforcement. In the coming, I think you can almost, I think that might be an appeal to some of our younger generation as far as, you know, flying an unmanned drone, you know, across campus, looking for thermal imaging and things. I mean, we think about drones as trying to search for people who are, took off on foot or lost or whatever on off-campus things. I think it has a possibility of having, when I talk about force multipliers, I think I think there's a place for drones on campus, on college campuses as a proactive approach. I think you can cover a lot more ground with drones. Again, I hate to say those things because you're almost saying, well, we're going to eliminate the need for the human interaction. Can't do that, but I do think it maybe would help us address that maybe shortfall in recruitment. So, I think it's a slippery slope. I think you got to have a balance of both of it, but both of those things. But those are kind of the things we're looking at now. Very excited. I think we're looking at 2027 for the KGI building to be open. And, you know, that'll be a great partnership. Director Matthews and the KGI is doing an incredible job of including other partners, state, federal partners, local partners, to be involved in that project. So I think that's gonna be a regional kind of a crown jewel for us, in the law enforcement community. So happy to be part of it, even happier to have it on our campus.
Great, thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions? Thank you very much for what you do.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
I understand there might be a motion for an executive session. Maybe there's not, maybe there's not.
Suspicion will be validated. I move that the governance committee recess into executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel. The subject of this executive session is CEO compensation. The purpose is to protect the privacy of the individual board employees involved. The session should last approximately 60 minutes and shall include the following persons who are either members of the body or will aid in this discussion. Members, Kansas Board of Regents Governance Committee, General Counsel John Urey, Director of Finance and Administration Becky Potabom, and representatives of CBIZ Benefits and Insurance Services, Inc. The open meeting of the Governance Committee shall resume at 9:50 p.m.
Thanks, beautiful.
Would you AM?
a.m.
There's a second. All right, all in favor, please.
I got it right. Yeah. God.
It's gonna be a long day.
But, yeah,
Thank you.